is the Vintage RPG Podcast, your source for the best in classic and contemporary RPGs. With your hosts, Hambone and Stu.
Welcome to the Vintage RPG Podcast, coming at you again from the clubhouse hidden somewhere in the swamps of New Jersey. I'm John Hambone McGuire, and with me, as always, is the founder and publisher of Unwinnable. I once asked him if he'd like to play Truth or Dare, and he just said no. Stu Horvath.
It's true. That is a bad game. How you doing?
Terrible game. I'm good. I'm like beat up because I got my friggin' COVID booster and my flu shot at the same time. So my body's just like, why did you?
Did you do that yesterday?
I did it on Tuesday, and now I'm finally. I can finally like lift my arm, like, you know.
Man, I woke up. I did mine yesterday, and I'm doing okay. I haven't had anything too bad, but I woke up and I could feel my skeleton.
Oh my God!
All of it at the same time. I've never felt that way before.
So you could feel like your entire skeleton.
Yeah, like from the top of my skull to like all the little bones in my feet. It was weird.
Yeah, but hey, you know, we did the right thing, and our winters will be better for it. So we're talking about a Cthulhu scenario today, yeah?
Yeah. So it's called The Dare, and it has a bit of a long history. I want to start off though by asking you, Hambone, what do you think is the very first role-playing adventure that has kids as the player characters?
Wow. Okay. So that's a great question, because normally, obviously, the most prevalent one now is like kids on bikes. Like it's in the title, right? But back in the day, you know, looking at all the old modules and the things that, you know, I'd come across from different types of RPGs, like I never really saw any that have kids, because it's always like adults in like bad, perilous situations.
Right.
I don't even know. What is it?
I think it's The Dare. Trick question.
Really?
Yeah, no, I think that The Dare is the first one to cast children as the protagonists, the player characters. And I don't think anybody really did it until until much later. I can't think of anything before like the recent kind of like Tales from the Loop, Kids on Bikes. There's a couple others, but they're all like within the last 10 years. I can't think of any that came out in the 80s, certainly. And even the 90s is tough. I feel like the 90s was like edgy punk teens is maybe the closest that you got to.
All right, well, define kids, like age-wise.
These are kids. These are trick-or-treating kids.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a fine distinction. Okay.
Yeah.
So when did this come out?
So The Dare was originally, it was written by Kevin A. Ross, and it was a tournament module for Gen Con. And he recalls having written it and run it in the late 80s, early 90s. And his recollection is that it was the first RPG to cast children as the protagonists.
I believe it. I mean, that's
I do too.
Really far back.
It really is. And it just like it's funny because we think of the 80s as like the era of the kid adventure because of all the Amblin Entertainment movies, and like Choose Your Own Adventure books were all sort of kid led, and like it was a real golden age for like this idea of children doing things that seem much more dangerous than they ought to be doing.
Have you met the Goonies?
Right. But it's interesting to me that style of play seems to or like that style of story seems to have been overlooked for many decades until recently.
You know, even like with 3-2-1 action, a lot of our adventures you play like as teenagers, because like when you think about a scenario where like your buddy gets kidnapped and dragged into the woods by a monster, teenage Hambone is going to go get a hockey stick or whatever is not nailed down, and he's going after his friend. 44-year-old Hambone with a bad back and plantar fasciitis in his feet is going to be like, I don't know, guys. I'm weighing my options, you know, like, yeah. So it makes a lot more sense that kids would be willing to get into dangerous situations. Devil may care.
Yeah. At the same time, The Dare is Kevin A. Ross's Dare is gnarly and pretty deadly, and exposes maybe some of the things that make us uncomfortable about the idea of putting kids in dangerous situations, even if they're fictional. And maybe that put people off the idea for a couple decades.
Yeah, it makes sense. That actually does make a lot of sense.
So it is like a semi-legendary scenario. I had heard of it sort of in passing for years. The only time it saw print until recently was in one of the Triad Entertainment third-party adventure anthologies for Call of Cthulhu. They had a license for a few years, from like 93 to 96 or 97. This book came out in 96. It was called Dwellers in Shadows. And like, you had to be really hardcore into Cthulhu. I had the first of the Triad books, Lurking Horrors or Lurking Fears, but I just never had the means to get the others. So I feel like the rest of the line is fairly obscure, and that's the only time that the Dare saw print in the past. There was a Kickstarter a few years back to reprint it. Had sort of an agonizing production time. It took a long time to come out. It was one of the first Kickstarters where like the folks working on it seemed pretty earnest and were doing it. They just kept getting held up by, production problems. And it was the first Kickstarter where I was sort of like appalled at at the people like yelling at these people for their thing. And I was like, just relax. They're working on it. They seem like they're working in good faith. Like Chaosium hasn't yanked the license. So like until that happens, like let's everybody calm down and let them work.
Yeah. Independent publishing isn't exactly easy.
Yeah, no, it's not an exact science
or fast.
Even before the pandemic, like things were tough working with, slim margins and volunteers at a lot of time and low pay, and things happen anyway. So it did have a little bit of a lengthy production time, but it came out and it really exceeded my expectations. It was the first time that I've ever actually read the scenario. Now it has been reworked. There are certain things I believe that have been put back in to the scenario that were removed for good taste purposes in the Dwellers in Shadows version.
Right.
There's some serious nastiness at the end of this. So I want to be clear. This is a game about kids, but it is definitely not for kids.
Oh, Lordy, no. I mean, I just pulled it up on Drive Thru RPG. I'm looking at the cover. I got to say, I love the slight sidestep of copyright infringement by having the kids all facing away from the camera. So you have a kid who's like loosely dressed like Marty McFly. We'll call him Barty McFly. You've got a ghost chaser. You've got a kid with
Duke Skywalker.
You got Duke Skywalker. You got Chuck Brown. No puppy present. Idaho Jones and the Wicked Witch of some kind of direction. We'll say the South. In front of a haunted house with like this really spooky looking grandma specter floating over it. Like the cover is amazing. And I mean, it's a platinum seller right now on Drive Thru RPG. So people are buying this thing.
Yeah. And I'm gonna spoil everything. So if you think that your interest has been whetted and you want your players and you want your GM to run this for Halloween, get them to do that. Stop listening now because I'm going to spoil the heck out of everything because I have to. We can't really talk about it unless we talk about how it the setup and what it's all about. So you've been warned. All the secrets will be revealed momentarily. So turn it off now and come back to it after you've played it in October. So yeah, the idea, the titular dare, yeah, it's a haunted house thing where it's Halloween. You're in your costumes, and you're going into you're dared to go into the haunted house in town. You're dared by a slightly older, quote unquote, bad kid who is taunting you to go in. Little do you know that he is already fallen prey to what lurks in the cave underneath the house. And he is just skin. He's a bag of skin that is powered by a hive of cooperating insects, which is horrible.
That is the worst.
So outside, he looks human enough. Once he gets inside, he tries to hunt you down. And as you explore the house, tries to isolate characters and kill them and or drag them down into the caves to be dealt with by its master. The house is full. So basically, the thing in the basement or in the caves is a witch. She's been there for a long time. She subsists on a steady diet of vermin and children. And she has used the bad kid to lure more kids into her larder. So yeah, like I said, about kids, not for kids.
That's awesome.
The house is full of spooky stuff. She's got a whole bunch of different familiars. It's, Call of Cthulhu, so there's rat things, but there's also cat things and bat things and other things crawling around, making life difficult and spooky. She kind of keeps tabs on everything that's going on by looking out of the mirrors that are in the house, and she has a host of spells that are catering towards the house to kind of seal it. She calls up a storm to keep the kids inside. There's a whole bunch of trickery to kind of keep the kids there and force them lower and lower into the house. Meanwhile, there's clues that the kids can find to kind of figure out what's going on. There's one of my favorite things, and I think the attic, there's a closet where there's the old tinker guy who lives in town. His body is up there and his hand is missing because the witch made a hand of glory out of it.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
really?
No, it's so good. There's so much good stuff. And yeah, the kids do have an opportunity to kind of figure out what's going on and be adequately prepared when they go down to the basement to mess up this witch. But it's going to be hard. And the bug kid is a real problem in the beginning. But I think it all works. It works like a very well crafted, tightly constrained horror movie. Kids trapped in house, things trying to kill kids trying to kill those things and escape. The stuff there is very simple, direct, easy to parse. Like there's not a huge mystery here, but it's a really atmospheric, 3 or 4 hour play scenario. What it boasts in this version that it did not boast in 1980 something is a light version of the 7th edition rules for Call of Cthulhu called Kid Cthulhu.
All right. I like it.
Yeah, it's great, right? I don't know if this was designed by the folks at Sentinel Hill Press or by Chaosia. They give the copyright to Chaosia, but I think that's because it's like still their system and they're hacking it. So I'm not sure who came up with it, but whatever it is, whoever did it, it's good. The system works basically the same, and you have a condensed skill list that is much more kid-centric. So there's you have a catch-all for bad behavior called Play with Matches.
Oh, that's great. That is great.
You have a social skill called Be a Pal. You have science class, spooky stuff. They're cute. They get across their meaning, and they have broad application. And it makes the game a little bit lighter, a little bit easier to improv through. And it's great. And it also it heightens the horror because you get these character sheets that have these, fun, kind of cute skills. And you think, oh, this is going to be a fun, kind of cute, scary thing. And then horrible things happen in the house. And you're using I gotta, there's a headless corpse in this closet. I'm going to roll spooky stuff to see if that means anything. And then I'm going to be like, yes, that's the hand of a criminal can be made into a hand of glory. And you're going to be like, this is terrible. Why am I here? And it's just great. The whole thing's great.
I mean, I think the best part about any kind of kid adventure is that they are always way over their heads. Yes. Everything that's happening is above their pay grade, and it's up to them to be smarter than the adults and figure out a way out of it and survive. Right. However, in a scenario like this, it just sounds like, yeah, it's cute, it's adorable, and then it turns deadly on a dime, and then it's just like, well, they might not be smarter than the adults at all because the adults are all monsters, and they might not make it out of this thing alive. Yeah,
the witch, if somebody can either through spells or using the bug boy, if she can immobilize one of the kids, she has this really deadly attack in which she just eats them whole.
That's so good.
It is so good. But if you could I feel like if you could pull that off in the final encounter and the kid in the Charlie Brown costume gets swallowed whole by this gigantic pale grub-like witch, I think you're going to seriously traumatize your players in the best possible way.
Yeah, it's the worst case scenario for the kite eating tree. For all the times Charlie Brown cursed that tree for eating his kite when it flew in there on a beautiful day when he was flying his kite with Snoopy running around his feet, the tree took revenge in the form of a witch who ate him whole.
There you go.
God, I love it. I think this is now granted, if you are at the tier on our Patreon where Hambone runs games for you, I would definitely run this. So if you listen to this episode and immediately forget it, because I probably will run this somewhere down the line because this sounds like something that is completely in my wheelhouse. Oh, I love it. I'm excited. I'm actually downloading it right now.
Oh, awesome. Great. Yeah. It was, it took so long for it to show up, from the Kickstarter that I got it. And I was just like, oh yeah, I got to read this, but I'm like so busy that I think it literally took me like 2 years to read the thing. But when I finally read it this year, I was just like, oh my God, this is fantastic. And it's perfect for like a Halloween one shot. You know, it's like 3 hours max.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like you were writing a 400+ page book or anything where you had to read a bunch of other RPGs first. Stu, you had homework.
Yeah, so much homework,
dude. So this is great. So it's out now. Can you get physical copies of it? Because I just immediately jumped to Drive Through RPG to check out previews.
I don't know. Give me 1 second here.
Well, Drive Through is a print on demand, so you can actually get it printed on demand through Drive Through. I didn't know if they were like actually selling physical copies of it anywhere, but yeah, I highly recommend this. From what it sounds like to me, what I'm seeing in the previews, like it's a no-brainer. It's right over the plate, especially for spooky season.
Yeah. I figured we'd get ourselves started a little bit early. I feel like we're going to be busy in October with other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you're releasing a book. I'm kind of getting married. There's things happening. Well, I'm getting married in September, but still, it's
right at the end there.
It's right at the end. It's technically October. Spooky season has begun. They're already serving pumpkin spice lattes at the Starbucks. But yeah, this is our spooky season kickoff with The Dare. Next week, you are actually away getting your book ready to go. I chat with the dudes who produced Shiver for their new Kickstarter called Don't Play This Game. It's actually a found footage solo play adventure, which
fun.
I've seen the quick play version. It is insane. So I definitely recommend listening to that one. And then we got some other cool stuff on the burners coming up. But any final thoughts on The Dare?
You should pick it up and any way you can and play it and traumatize your friends.
Right on, man. So this was another amazing episode of the Vintage RPG podcast. Dude, where can the people find you on the internet?
They can find me on Instagram at Vintage RPG. This will be on this will be this will be part of the October posts of 2024.
There you go. Not making you wait too long for it. You can find me across the internet at John McGuire RPG. I am leaving the house. I'm doing some stuff. I'm going places. You know, I'm getting married. There'll be pictures if anyone wants to see those. Also, I have a Kickstarter coming up Friday, October 13th. The Hotel Exorcist. You play a group of demonologists and exorcists sent to a resort town in Pennsylvania to get rid of some unwanted guests who stayed far past checkout. And where you find me on social media, you can click the link, get notified for the day of launch. We are ready to have some spooky fun with you this Halloween season. Really, for me, it's the holiday season because this is the one I care about. Also, if you want to pick up any of our books, Exalted Funeral, books and PDFs, anything 3 Twin Acts related, that's where you go to pick it up, Exalted Funeral. Another cool thing coming up, by the time you hear this episode, we are a hop, skip, and a jump from the release of Monsters, Aliens, and Holes in the Ground.
Guide to tabletop role-playing games from Dungeons and Dragons to Mothership.
It's
one
dropping.
Of these days I'm going to get it.
One of these days. It's dropping on October 10th. You can still pre-order it through bookstore.com. You can pre-order through barnesandnoble.com. Preferably, you could pre-order through your friendly neighborhood bookstore because they'd be happy to take your money. But definitely pick up this book. It's something special. It's going to be a great look into, obviously D&D, but it's going to be a broader look into the robust palette that is tabletop RPGs through the eyes of one Stu Horvath. If you like the show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Your reviews really do help other listeners to find us. If you really like the show, why not become a patron? Patreon.com/vintagerepg. We got early release episodes sometime on Friday, maybe Saturday, depending on when we get them to Alex. We've got a killer Discord community we'd love to be a part of. Behind the scenes, look at the stuff Stu's working on. Behind the scenes, look at the stuff that I'm working on. At the $10 tier, Stu has an ongoing West Marches campaign. At the $3 tier, I run a game a month. This month, we are going to be running Monster of the Week. October, we're going to be running, I guess this airs in October. So September, Monster of the Week. October, I'm doing Ghostbusters, the West End Games Ghostbusters. Literally, Ooh. We're doing that. I'm so excited to run that for people. And who knows, if I get a wild hair up my ass, I might also do the Dare, which, if you listen to this episode, Oopsie. Now you know too much. Don't metagame, guys. Come on. But our Discord's a great place. The Discord community is second to none. And, we'd love for you to be a part of it. Patreon.com/vintagerpg. So for Stu Horvath, I'm John Hambone McGuire. May the dice always roll in your favor. Take care.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Every review helps other listeners to find us. The Vintage RPG Podcast is a ham-fisted production. Music by Dego West. Art by Schaefer Brown. If you like the podcast, you should also consider becoming a patron at patreon.com.